The Winter estate stood like a gleaming crown in the heart of Chicago, walls of polished glass and steel piercing the skyline, a monument to power and opulence. Its owner, Alexander Winters, was a billionaire whose reputation was as frigid as the winter wines his name evoked. In business, he was merciless, in routine, precise to the minute, in temperament, utterly closed to sentiment. His household staff called him Mr. Freeze, not just because of his surname, but because his presence seemed to strip warmth from any room. Among the dozen who kept the estate flawless, there was one barely noticed, a 24-year-old maid named Rosa. She had only been there 4 months, speaking little, moving quietly, almost like a shadow gliding from one task to the next. Her uniform, though clean, was mended in places. Her shoes had thin cracks along their soles. She never complained, never arrived late, never lingered on breaks. But Alexander had noticed something odd, and it had begun to irritate him. Rosa would return to the refrigerator repeatedly, sometimes after polishing the marble floors, sometimes in the early morning before the rest of the staff stirred. She would open the door slowly, let her eyes drift over the neatly arranged shelves, read labels, check dates, and then close it without taking a thing. Her gaze lingered on containers and expiry stamps, as though they told her some private story. One afternoon, Alexander returned unexpectedly from a meeting gone sour. His patience was already worn thin when, from the corner of his eye, he caught sight of her again, standing at the open fridge, eyes fixed on its contents. He strode in sharply. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" His voice was a blade. Rosa flinched, shutting the fridge as though it burned her, retreating a step. You were just what? Spying? Stealing? Hunting for scraps?" The accusation was thunderous. "No, sir, I was." Her voice trembled, but he cut her off. "You're finished here. Pack your things. I won't have a thief under my roof." The staff said nothing, their eyes downcast, as Rosa swallowed her tears, nodded, and disappeared toward the staff quarters. By nightfall, she was gone. Alexander told himself it was done, but the memory of her silence clung to him. Why hadn't she defended herself? Why had she looked, afraid to explain? 3 days later, Mrs. Carter, his longtime housekeeper, came to him. She hesitated before speaking. "It's about Rosa, sir," she said. "I've already told you. She wasn't stealing." Carter interrupted softly. "She was checking expiry dates." "Why?" Alexander's voice was ice. "She would take expired food home, not for herself, for 3 children in her building. Their mothers are gone. Their fathers useless. She said expired bread is still better than an empty plate. And last week, she bought them medicine out of her own wages. Came in with a fever that day so she wouldn't lose her job." The words hit harder than he expected. That night, Alexander found himself in front of the fridge, staring not at the food but at the truth. He thought of her quiet trembling, her refusal to plead. She must have known no one would believe a maid with nothing but her word. Shame, not guilt, gripped him. Rosa's apartment was a small, peeling room in a building with a dead elevator and cold air seeping through thin walls. 4 days had passed since she lost her job. She had $12 left, and had skipped her own meals so little Liam, Daniela, and baby Marin next door could eat. When a knock came that evening, she thought it was the landlady demanding rent again, but opening the door she froze. Alexander Winters stood there in a dark coat, holding 2 heavy paper bags. "I need to talk," he said. She stepped aside silently. He set the bags on her small table. "I was wrong," he began simply. "I misjudged you. I accused you without listening. Carter told me the truth, and I didn't want to believe it. But I do now." The bags held fresh groceries, medicine, bread, and baby formula. "I want you to come back, not as a maid, as a student. My company will sponsor your education, whatever you want to study. And when you're done, you'll have a place in our nonprofit, helping families like yours." Rosa's voice was barely a whisper. "Why?" Alexander's expression softened. "My mother cleaned houses. No one ever helped her. She died when I was 12. I saw her in you, and I realized, it's time I stopped being cold and started being the kind of person she would have been proud of." 1 week later, Rosa returned, not to clean, but to lead.